Hi everyone. Today I'm working with a new kit and I thought it might be helpful to show you the ways that I use my printer settings and different papers to get the most out of a kit. So here's the Vintage Rose Collection kit, and on my printer I've gone into the layout menu and chosen 16 pages per sheet. And that's going to allow me to print the pages that I want. I've done it double-sided, so I've used, this is the tea-dyed kit, and so that would allow me to make mini books. So that's 16 pages per sheet. Doing the same thing in the layout menu, this is 9 pages per sheet, and again I could make a smaller book, smaller pages, and I've used the Vintage Collection for the back of it as well, the Vintage Rose Collection. So that's 9 pages per sheet. And to give you an idea, here's some of the bits and pieces that I've cut out. These are the smaller elements of the ephemera pages, little envelopes and tags, etc. So I've already cut those out and they're at the normal size. And then here's a sheet where I've printed 2 pages per sheet. And so for an example, here's this little card here, and you can see that's the normal size and that's the 2 pages per sheet. So that gives me little mini journal cards, or I can use that for whatever I like. So that's the card. Here's this little envelope. This will fold into a little coin envelope. And that will be the full size, and then you can see here when I compare it, that's the half size, 2 pages per sheet. And here's the circles, you can see the difference in size. Here's the hearts that you can see. And if you wanted smaller tabs, this is the full size, and that's, if I put that side by side, that's the half size. So if you wanted smaller tabs for something, that's on the 2 pages per sheet. So that's playing with printer settings. Here's some where I've just printed, these are just printed on normal full size. This is on digital paper. And then on the reverse side, I've printed the tea stained kit. So I've combined kits so that I can get the most out of those. If you have smaller than A4 or a US letter size pads, this is just a scrappy pad that somebody gave me. What I've done is I've used this to print this out, and I'll peel it off now. Be interesting to see what it looks like. I've just used washi tape, and I'll show you how I've done that. I've just popped the washi tape down the middle. I've left a bit of a space when I put these 2 sheets on. And because washi tape is low tack, you should be able to get it off without it damaging anything. And I'll just take the top one off. And this way it allows you to make the most of any papers that you've got. And they don't have to be A4. So let me just get that little bottom bit off. So that's the piece of paper that it was stuck to, and then you can see there that that's this note paper, and you can see there that that's printed beautifully. and I can ink that up, or I can make anything I want with that, but it gives me different papers to put in the journal. So that's the note papers. By the same token, this is just an old book of quotes that the library was throwing out. It had fallen apart, and I've done the same thing there. I've just used washi to stick these two on. And you could do this with any size. For the ones that I'm using, I only fit 2 pages from the book onto the sheet. So there you can see the book of quotes, and then I've printed it on that same size paper. So at the moment it's blank on the back, and it's printed that. Some of the ink has gone through because it's thin paper, but that doesn't matter. I could, something like making that into a little envelope or something, you could use it for whatever you like. But that's that size, and I'll show you the other piece here. If you just take your time getting the washi off so it doesn't tear anything, particularly when you're using the thinner type papers like this one is. So I just keep, this is just an A4 scrap paper that when there was a printer jam, I keep these just in a little tray for things like this so that they do make some use. So that's what's left of the paper, and there's that page and that page from the book. So you're getting the rose prints on top of the quotes, which I think is really nice. Then these ones are just, I've just printed some of these pages. These are on digital paper, and they're just white on the background. And I thought that these might make really pretty covers. They're really large size flowers, so I thought they might make good covers. So I've only printed them one side. I didn't want to worry about the back on those, and then I will cover my journal with that. Now someone gave me this really old exercise book. It's from way back. It's even got rusty staples in it, and what I've done is I've just opened the staples and just pulled the pages out, just flattened out the little bumps in the paper to get a piece of paper, a note paper like that. And if I compare that against an A4, you can see that it's way bigger than an A4. So all I did was I folded a piece of A4 in half. So this is A4 folded in half, and I just trimmed this note paper down to the right size, and then opened it out so that it was a piece of A4. So that's a really old notebook. And then here's the result. So you can see that's the full size paper, and that's the trimmed down size. It's easier to see if you see it like that. I've just trimmed it down so that when I open that out, that's the full size A4 print, and that's ready just to go in the journal from using the note paper. So there's one, and I've just folded them a different way. There's the other. So you can see the lines through the printing on both of them. It's easier to see on this one. You can see the notebook lines, and that's ready to go in a journal. What I found with this, when I tried to tea dye this paper, the lines just washed away, disappeared. So, and I think that's just because of the ink that they used. So doing it this way, you get really clear lines to write on, and you can make use of basically any notebooks or pages, old school books or whatever you've got. That's a great way to use those up. Okay, these ones, what have I got here? I got, from a Facebook group I'm in, I got this beautiful old ledger, and it's this lovely old ledger paper with numbers on it. It's quite an old book. It's been in someone's cupboard for ever and a day. So I've used that book. And again, if I show you the A4 size paper that I'm using, the paper isn't the right size for this book. So all I did was, again, cut it down. So it's too narrow for an A4. And so when I put it through the printer, I used washi tape. You can just see at the edges here, I just used washi tape to hold this onto the printer page. And I wanted to keep the number. This journal ledger book has numbers at the top. I wanted that to be kept, so I trimmed it off the bottom. So when I put it in, I trimmed this bit off and then printed that out. So I've got ledger paper ready to go in the journal. Then again, these are some of the ephemera from the kit. This is all the ephemera that I've cut out, and I've printed it onto sticker paper. So these are ready to just cut out and then peel off and add to the journal. And they're great things to tuck in little coin envelopes for the person who's going to receive the journal to be able to decorate them themselves. So that's just using whole pieces of sticker paper and cut them out and then leave the sticker paper on the back for somebody else to decorate their journal. So here's a few more of the journal pages from the kit. And I've printed them double-sided so that I've got the journal paper on the back and the scrapbook paper on the front. So once you fold these up and they are ready to go into your journal, you've got lovely scrapbook paper with journal papers on the back. So that's just printing double-sided. These two pages I've got given a pack of presentation paper. It's hard to sort of see. It's got like a cloudy pattern on it. It's a bit thicker than my normal paper, but I thought it might be nice to have a couple of pages that are a little bit sturdier, so that if you want to add pockets and things, this thicker paper might give it a little bit more strength. And it's also sort of a vintagey colour. It's kind of like in a beigey, kind of like a coffee or tea stain paper. So that's using thicker paper. And you also get a different, if you look at the colour, the printing colour, you get a slightly aged. These two prints look a little bit different in colour tone. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but this is kind of glossy and newer looking. This does give it a nice vintagey look just by using the different colour in the paper that you run through your printer. These ones, again, they've got that aged look and they've printed beautifully. On the back, this is avocado dyed paper. I have ironed this paper. I just keep this in a little pouch. This is all the avocado dyed paper. And some of the edges, when you were dyeing it, some of the edges are might be a bit torn. Some of the pages, there was one there, let me find that one, from where it was sitting in the tray might have different staining on it. I've lost it now, but I want to find it. There's one that had sitting at the bottom of the tray. It's got the metal from the tray has coloured the paper. But all those imperfections just add to the vintagey look. So again, these pages have just got that aged look. And even though the papers weren't perfectly straight, they didn't jam in the printer or cause any problem. You can see that one's got a little bit of a buckle at the end. There wasn't any problems going through the printer. So that's the avocado dyed paper. And the same deal with coffee or tea stain paper. These ones, I don't know if you can see that, but when I've coffee stained these ones, they've got sparkle. I hope the lights can pick that up. So these are stained. This has got a pale green colour on it, and it's just got this beautiful shimmer or sparkle to it, and it's printed beautifully. It hasn't caused any problem with the ink. And again, you can use, these are only one-sided with that paper, so you could use these for covers or to make cards, but they've got that lovely sparkle, that glimmer to them. So here's just an old pad of graph paper left over from studies, and I've just printed, you can see the holes here. I've just put that through the printer, and that's printed beautifully. And then you've got the graph paper on the back with just a little bit of, tiny bit of bleed through, but it's, again, it's in the shape of the rose. So different paper, prints beautifully. And the graph paper doesn't really, if you hold it up, you do see a little bit of the graph paper through the image here, but not much. It's fairly faint, but you do get all the lovely holes from it. So that worked beautifully as well. Then I got this pad given to me. This is the Japanese writing paper, and I wanted to keep this grid for the journal, so I've printed this on the back of the white sheet. I printed this image, and then when you fold it over, you've got this lovely Japanese writing paper. So this one is using this tracing paper pad. It's a 90 GSM. It's just your standard tracing paper, very much like vellum. And you can see this is an A4 piece of paper here. That's the shimmer paper that I ran through for the other prints. This is slightly smaller because I've had to trim the outside. With my old printer, I could run tracing paper through it, but when that died and I got a new one, I found that the new printer does this when I run tracing paper through it. It buckles and smears all the ink. Just in this section here, you can see that. So what I have to do on my new printer is I use the thinnest double-sided tape I can find. You could use washi tape as well, but I've tried this. And I just run this around the very outside edge of all four sides of the paper, and then stick my tracing paper on, and then I cut that. You can see I've cut that tape, and I centre that. I've just cut the edges of the page down, so I get a beautifully printed sheet, and it's see-through. Let me show you. So it's lovely see-through to make something beautiful out of that. And this sheet, even though it's jammed in the printer, I will keep this and cut this down. I'll tear strips off that, and I'll make something like this with it. This is just some, I've got some plain paper as the first layer. I've got a ruffled bit of book page, some lace, and some vellum. And that will be something beautiful to decorate my journal with. So I'll keep my off print and I'll use that for something like that. This is an old book of piano paper that I found in an op shop. And so I've just cut, here's the piece of paper I cut out. I've cut it down to make it an A4 size because it was larger than that. And then I've printed this sheet with the beautiful music imagery on that, and it's again double-sided, so that will make a beautiful page to add to the journal as well. This is one of the just one of the pads from one of the big stores. This one's from Kmart. It's just a pad. It's got, when you open it, it's got a tear off section here. If you can see the serrated parts where you tear a page out. If I tear the page out, it's smaller than A4, so I just tore it carefully by tearing right back at the base rather than on the serration. And then I ran that through the printer so that you've got that on the back and this beautiful image on the front. So the back of these sheets was just white, so I made sure that the page went onto the white page. So there's just a few different ways to get the most out of your digitals. Combining kits, reducing sizes, using a whole variety of different pages, and if need be, cutting pages down or using washi to put pages on so that your printer will run them through, and it just means that you've got interesting pages in your journal with less bulk. If you're using pages that are already interesting, you're not adding a double-sided interesting page, but you're just getting a whole variety of pages in your journal. So I hope you'll try some of those.